Hello. Today, we're going to be doing some editing on session. I know. You're either really good at it, or you don't know how to do it at all. Or you figured it out a little bit, but there's still some parts of it that are kind of weird and confusing. I will say, this isn't the first video of this kind. Shout out Kiba Skates and JL Nightmare, and many others who have covered editing in session before. But you know what? As a photographer and videographer myself, I feel like, let me dive in. Let's get into it. Alright, so we got this little clip. Just a simple little Smith. Pop out. A little slide on the little ledge afterward. Just like very slightly. But we did set up a light here. And I have it on the side for the dramatic effect. A little backlight instead of a front light. But what we'll do first, we'll do a follow, but we'll do a tripod, and we'll also do a long lens. So first things first, you want to set your starting and your end point. On PlayStation, that is Shift R1, and then you're going to push in on the L stick, pushing on the right stick for the end, the start and the end. And then you're going to hit R1 triangle to zoom in on the clip. That way you're not looking at the whole entire timeline at the top, you're just looking at the part you want to see. One of the most important things that I see so many people forgetting when they first get into this, see where it says montage view off? L1, you're always going to want that on. In my opinion, always. Because what that means is every time you make a change, it's viewable. Meaning, if you went in here, drop a key there, drop a key there, drop a key there, just to show you. It won't change because you don't have your montage view on. But as soon as you hit montage view on, it's going to actually track wherever you just put those keyframes. If the montage view isn't on, you're never even going to get that far. We'll start with what I think is the easiest, so like the easiest version, which is tripod. So it's a non-follow angle. For these, I recommend going somewhere in like the middle of your trick and just doing like a look away kind of. And your in-camera keyframe, notice how it says time of day, camera shake, play rate, camera lens. There's so many, right? When you're just starting, just camera. And then montage view is on. You're going to shift, which is R1 on PlayStation. You're going to always see how it says L1 linear key, constant key, smooth key. In the beginning, just do smooth. They're green. Just worry about those right now. We'll get into what the other ones do, but right now, just green. You place that first one where you want it to be, and then you're just going to scrub forward a little bit using your trigger. Somewhere where it's normal. If you do it too close, like if you did it like right here, if you looked at yourself right there, so close to that first one, look how fast it'll go. That's crazy. That's crazy fast. But if you do it a little further, it's kind of a little smooth. So now that we're there in the clip, we scrub a little bit more, and just this is a simple tripod angle. There's not going to be a lot of movements. So the third keyframe, you're going to point it at yourself. You're going to scrub. Turn at yourself again. Now remember, we're doing a simple tripod. And then for our last one, we'll just turn back down. So for a simple tripod, we only had to place 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 keyframes. That's it. We're on free camera. I recommend always being on free camera, which if you look down there with square, you can change game camera, filmer camera. But free camera really allows you to do anything. So tripod angle, no work involved, no moving of the camera, just saying it's a tripod, it doesn't move. So that's one, okay? If we go back and we delete all of these, and we do what's called, what I call a long lens, I don't know what anyone else is calling it, I call it long lens, I'll say let's go from somewhere far. And you'll see why. So remember when I said something about only be on camera? This is when you're going to want to bust out and go to field of view. But one thing I will say before you get crazy into field of view, you only want to change your field of view when you're on a camera keyframe. So since we placed a camera keyframe, we're going to go back to FOV or field of view, place one. And what we want to do is get a lot closer to ourselves than we were before. Don't worry, because you can go back to camera, lift up just a smidge to get yourself in shot, reset that keyframe right there. And then this is where the DOV, which is right past FOV, or depth of field is. You want to place it in the same spot that you placed that green for the keyframe for the camera and for the FOV. Same spot. This, you're just going to compensate for when you're in focus. So we're in focus here, but our background's still blurry. Let's do a little bit more, because you can kind of see that little glow around our body. We don't want that. Okay. Now that we have this, we're getting into a little bit. So now you'll see ourselves coming in. Now you're wondering, well, I'm out of frame. Well, you need to turn into the camera. So you go back to camera. Sometimes I get rid of that by pressing triangle just so I can see more of what's happening. And then the cool thing with this, you can hit R1 and the trigger and just turn a little bit. You can go crazy with it, but I recommend just small movements. And then the fun part is, if you notice, we might want to change the depth of field again a little bit because we're out of focus. See, all you're going to do is compensate, telling the camera to refocus on yourself once you make it that far. And if you notice, we kind of lose ourselves here. Like, that's bad. So in that, you can just lift up, place another keyframe so that you're not losing yourself in that moment. But one thing I will say is I wouldn't be mad if this last frame was more on our board. Like ignoring ourselves, maybe. Getting that scrape, and then I'll see how that's out of focus. Easy. Go right on the keyframe, place another depth of field, and compensate until you see yourself in focus. It's very simple. So now, instead of seeing ourselves just right there, you can hit R1 and use the L stick to move the start back a little bit. That way, let's say we want to go from the caution low clearance sign. See how that was? Let's give ourselves a little bit more time even. And now that I've watched it, I don't hate it. I don't hate it. Not for just a simple long lens follow clip. The funnest one of all, the one I feel like people tend to find the hardest to look smooth, which maybe it's just because there's a lot of ways you can mess up the follow. You know what I mean? Like, it's not very easy. This method, in my opinion, isn't the easiest. Now, I like to do these ones, so I'm gonna try it. It's gonna be kind of weird, but I'm gonna point it at the ground. I'm going to place a smooth key. I'm going to go forward a little bit. You can kind of hear yourself skating, so you can kind of tell when you need to stop. And then kind of by this point, we're getting ready to do the trick. So we basically need our camera person in frame. And I want to go with kind of a lower angle here. So you'll see kind of what we're working with. Following the ground and then coming up. You don't need to place a million keyframes. That's one thing I did when I first started editing. I placed way too many of these green keys. So it's almost like if you do too many, you'll notice. Because I guess, for an example, let me put a lot just so you can see. Like, even that many, like, it looks pretty smooth. But if nothing changes from this keyframe right here to the next keyframe, nothing's really changing my angle, get rid of it. There's no reason it really needs to be there. Same with that one. Now I will say, here I can say, maybe let's go up a little bit. And then I can let it ride. And then I can coast down and kind of go to where I see my endpoint being. Which I would love to get the pop off and then show the side of the concrete where I scrape it. But being too close, I can see being an issue. But I like doing weird stuff Like, maybe that's a little too extreme, the way I tweaked it, but you'll see the point. Now we lose our board right there. So I would say maybe I'm a little extreme. Let's back up a little bit and go down a little bit so I don't lose my board. Yep, see? Now we don't lose it. It doesn't go out of frame. And that's what I mean. But the reason I like this angle, it's weird, but you can actually see all of the kinks on the concrete that I'm grinding over by viewing it like that. So let's watch it one more time. So now we got a follow. So we did a tripod, a follow, and a long lens all in one go of it. Not in very long either. That did not take very long. And one other thing you could add to this that I didn't, which I usually always do, is see how we're in camera? Was what we were mainly using. If you go to camera shake and drop one down, don't get too crazy with these. But in a couple places where you feel like there could be some extreme bouncing or shaking, it adds a little life to the camera. It adds a little bit of like a real person holding it. And you can't really notice it. If it's not there, you'll notice it. If I go like really crazy, a 17, like you still barely noticed it. That's how crazy. Like, it's honestly, you can get kind of wild. Now 29 is going to be too much. But I honestly like it for something like this just because I feel like a person following you, they're gonna have some trouble. You know what I mean? You're floating through a parking garage. It's gonna be a little shaky. There's gonna be moments where they're probably struggling. So I kind of like it. Now another thing you could do here that I think could be cool would be slow motion. So I would say the slow motion, the easiest thing, the play rate or else they call it, is still staying on smooth keys, which are green keys. You would go wherever you want slow motion. Let's say we want slow motion to be like right when we hit these kinks. So that would be here and here. So right before we want it to go slow, which would be, we want it to start here. I like a 0.3 or a 0.4 sometimes, just depends. But we want the normal speed right before it, and then we want to come out of it. Usually people say you want that in the middle. That's what I was taught. So you want your slowdown point somewhere in the middle of your speed burst. And see, that looked pretty good. I think that looked pretty good. But some cool stuff you can do for sure. Messing with that. Just for reference. Just for reference. But yeah, sometimes you can really exaggerate the slowdown. It just depends on what you're doing. Sometimes you can really drag it out to extenuate a bigger moment. But that's probably the most dramatic replay that I would say I have, at least slow motion. But doing this one, I wanted to show you the difference with constant keys. So these little white keys, which are called constant keys, which using L1 on PlayStation, you'll see smooth is the green, yellow is linear, and the white is constant. All that's going to do is tell the camera to start in this position and don't move until you see a green key. So why this is important, I'm able to do these 2, sometimes 3 angles by using white keys. For example, this. Switch. See how it's switched without having to like have the green flow? That's because there's white keys. So as an example, all you would do is we wanted it to start. We wanted it to follow on green. So look at it. Following on green, following on green. And at that white key up there, we want it to stop. Don't follow me anymore, right? Stop. Don't follow me anymore. But this next white key tells it to switch. and then back to green so that I follow myself. It's very easy, but it's pretty... And honestly, you can kind of see this white key in the beginning doesn't need to be there. So one thing I can do is go up. Like, give myself a little more room. And maybe I just, like, go up a little bit. Nothing crazy. And now you can see it cut to the next shot. So the white keys are really important for B-roll in different angles. So leaving some room at the front of our clip. We got the make. And if you're ever on your clip like this and you're in a clip, just refresh your beginning and end point, and it'll get rid of it. So remember, free camera, montage view on, your keyframe is set to camera. The only thing we're going to do differently this time is we're going to use some white keys. So let's say, I always like this picnic area. So let's say this is a B-roll shot. One on constant keys, which is white, replace one. We go for a few seconds, we stop. We move again. Why not like this shot? We like this shot. Another white key. Go a little bit more into the clip. We see ourselves falling. Let's grab another simple. Three B-rolls kind of a lot, but maybe we go like through the fence here. And now we see ourselves about to start. Sorry, I'm like all over the place. So I'm gonna do like a long shot. And I usually tell people you want to see your feet, right? You don't want to be so low that you can't see the board running up. So we're gonna go here. Remember, we're gonna go constant. We want field of view to be constant because we don't want it to change. I'm gonna back up a little bit. You want to see the whole set. Now, see how these are all zoomed in? Because our FOV wasn't constant there. So it's going off of where we put it already. All we have to do is back up, go there, set our constant back to a normal keyframe. And then all that's going to do is tell it, oh, you want these to be at 100 until we get to the stair set. And just as easy as this is, once we're in, we put a green one. Right after that white one, we'll put a green smooth key. And that's saying, after this point, start following me again. Even if they're subtle. Now I cut my camera down, so there is no ending. But let's say we get the big shot because we want to see the stair set, but then somewhere right before the trick we start to zoom in. Let's go to field of view again, but this time it's green because we don't want it to start that close. We want it to zoom that close, if that makes sense. White means you want it to stay that way. Green means you want it to smooth into it. So just to compensate our camera difference, we'll change it like that. And actually, because we have a white FOV, we need to put a green one after it. See what I mean? So it smoothly does that. And then see how we're losing ourselves? We've got some depth of field issues, so go to the DOF. All you have to do is just change it. So we're back in focus. And then we'll check it out real quick. This was a really easy just to show the differences with the constant keys. And honestly, B-roll in this game looks so good. So why not get some of it, you know? And that's pretty smooth, pretty easy, pretty smooth. By using If you can take a look, I'll show you. White stays the same, stays the same, stays the same, moves when it's green. That's it. That's all. And just knowing that you are the camera, so your movement, any which way, left, right, is going to compensate where you go. But I will say, try not to do any really weird, like, here I am, and then I move all the way left. Like, that's... Like, that movement, while it looks kind of cinematic and cool, it doesn't make any sense. A camera person wouldn't actually do anything like this, you know? Like, they're not going to move left or right. Most skate filming is pretty straightforward and just focuses on making the trick look as good as possible. So, in that regard, you can pretty much do anything with the long lens. And then if you were going to do just the stairs, and you're like, okay, free camera, montage view on, I only want to do the close-up on the steps. Same thing. Get high enough to see your legs, because this looks weird. I'm not going to say no one does it. I'm just going to say a no run-up looks kind of weird. I feel like you want to see that. So, same situation. And actually, we'll go from above now. We'll turn the camera. We'll give it like a little turn. We'll place down a smooth key. We'll go a little bit. Turn ourselves a little bit more right side up. And now that we're flipping, go down a little bit. Like, you drop the camera because you're getting the trick, right? And you can follow it a little bit. But like I said, you don't need to, like, get... You know, you don't need to be... If you do too many keyframes, you're just going to be... You'll notice, trust me. Like, you can move a little bit. But, like, a filmer's not going to be at the top of this and, like, run down. If you know what I'm saying. And actually, I'm going to give us some more room. And yeah, it's not perfect, but if you notice, I feel like it goes down a little bit too soon, so... But just a simple one trick. Nothing wild. And if you wanted to do, you know, FOV here, you know, you could get a little wide angle if you wanted to. Now, clearly, I would have to move everything because, like, it's way too far, but that's one thing to consider before you do all that and you edit. And I will say you can change this kind of stuff in there, but I'd recommend just changing, if you want to go into fisheye, just doing it in the camera, in the game. That way you don't have to change too much. Like, you don't have to go in here and change, like, camera lens and all these confusing settings. You know what I mean? But that was it. It was just a little tiny tutorial. Nothing crazy, you guys. I just thought it would be worth it to throw this together and say, hey, if you're still having trouble, if the other videos didn't help you, which they should have because they're amazing. I watched the JL Nightmare one and I watched the Kiba Skates one. I've been trying to help a few other people learn how to edit, and I think the possibilities are endless in this game. And figuring that little formula out, it feels so satisfying to land even the most simplest of things. But if you get a pretty slick edit of it, it makes it feel so much better. So try it. Try it. I challenge you to try it. And if you have been filming already, sick, share your channel. Let me follow you if I don't already. I will see you later. Bye.